Welcome. Today we're diving deep into the life of Giacomo Puccini, the man behind some of the world's most beloved operas.
It's going to be quite a journey, from the streets of Lucca, Italy, all the way to the grand stages of Milan and New York.
Ambition, passion, and a touch of scandal. It's all there.
Oh, absolutely.
So we've got biographical details, personal anecdotes, even stories about his rather dramatic love life. Let's start by setting the scene.
All right, picture 19th century Lucca.
Beautiful Tuscany.
Giacomo Puccini was born there into a family practically synonymous with music. For generations, the Puccini name was linked to the Cattedrale di San Martino. For 124 years, they held the esteemed position of Maestro di Capella.
A true musical dynasty. You have to wonder if young Giacomo felt that pressure, that expectation to follow in his father's footsteps.
It seems almost inevitable, doesn't it, carrying on the family tradition? But, well, fate had other plans. When Giacomo was just 5, his father Michele passed away.
A defining moment, for sure. Not just personally, but maybe artistically, too.
Undoubtedly, you can't help but draw parallels between that early loss and the themes that run through his operas: love, longing, tragedy.
Almost like he poured those raw emotions, that pain, into his music.
Exactly. And here's another interesting thing. Despite coming from this long line of musicians, Puccini's early years were marked by financial hardship. That's a bit ironic.
A musical heritage, yet struggling to make ends meet.
It speaks volumes about his determination. There's a story about a single herring serving as dinner for 4. That wasn't just his imagination, it was a lived experience, a scene that would later echo in his opera, La Bohème.
It really brings to life his struggles. The man behind the grand operas.
Now let's talk about a different kind of drama: Puccini's personal life. At 26, he eloped with Elveda Gimignani, a married woman who had been his piano student.
A scandal that shook Lucca's society. What were the repercussions?
Defying social norms back then, it was a risk. Luckily for Puccini, his talent had a powerful champion, Giulio Ricordi, his music publisher.
Ricordi was more than just a publisher. He saw Puccini's genius, even amidst the controversy. He provided financial support, but also a shield from the backlash.
There's a story that Ricordi turned a blind eye to Puccini's personal life as long as the operas kept flowing, a testament to his pragmatism and his belief in Puccini's abilities.
It's fascinating. Puccini, this passionate artist, caught between love and his art, navigating all these challenges.
Which brings us to his first steps into the world of opera. His very first opera, La Villi, premiered when he was just 26.
Impressive. Was it an instant success?
Well, it caught the attention of Casa Ricordi, which was huge. But his second opera, Edgar, met a different fate.
The inevitable setbacks of any career. How did he handle that?
Edgar was a blow, withdrawn after only 3 performances. But it seems this fueled his determination. He poured his heart and soul into his next project, Manon Lescaut.
And this is where things really take off.
Manon Lescaut is not just an opera. It's Puccini finding his voice, his place in the opera world, and his life as complex and dramatic as the characters he brought to the stage.
Manon Lescaut, a turning point.
A major one. It premiered in Turin in 1893 to critical acclaim. And you know what's interesting? This premiere happened just a week before Verdi's final opera, Falstaff, debuted.
2 giants of Italian opera, their careers overlapping.
Almost like a symbolic passing of the torch.
What was it about Manon Lescaut that captivated audiences, that established Puccini's unique style?
It was his first undeniable triumph. Embraced by critics and the public, Puccini's ability to convey raw human emotion through music, his masterful use of melody and harmony, it all came together in Manon Lescaut. Even George Bernard Shaw,
Not an easy man to impress.
proclaimed Puccini the heir of Verdi. High praise indeed.
That must have been incredibly validating after the setback with Edgar. And this success led him to a partnership that would define his career. The librettists Luigi Illica and Giuseppe Giacosa.
Puccini, Illica, and Giacosa, a formidable force. They created 3 of Puccini's most enduring operas: La Bohème, Tosca, and Madama Butterfly.
Let's talk about La Bohème. It captures the essence of youth, love, and the struggles of artistic life in Paris.
Bohemian artists, poets, musicians, their lives a mix of laughter, love, and hardship. What strikes me about La Bohème is the way it blends comedy and tragedy. We see the joys and follies of these young bohemians: Rodolfo the poet, Marcello the painter, Mimi the seamstress. But beneath the surface, there's poverty, hardship, and ultimately, Mimi's tragic death from consumption.
That juxtaposition makes it so human. And it's interesting to consider how Puccini drew from his own experiences as a young artist in Milan.
The anxieties of making ends meet, the sacrifices for art, it's all there, infused with that sense of lived experience.
And there's a dramatic story behind La Bohème's creation, a rivalry with another composer, Ruggero Leoncavallo.
Both were drawn to Henri Murger's novel, Scènes de la vie de Bohème. Each wanted to turn it into an opera, a race to the finish line, with Puccini ultimately prevailing.
From the bohemian world of Paris, let's move to the drama and intrigue of Tosca. Rome, political upheaval.
Tosca is a different beast altogether, a thriller, a whirlwind of passion, jealousy, and violence. Floria Tosca, a famous singer, caught in a web of deception by the sinister Scortia, the chief of police.
The music in Tosca reflects that shift.
Dark, brooding melodies, sharp dissonances, a sense of impending doom. It exemplifies Verismo, a style of opera that emerged in the late 19th century, gritty realism, raw emotional intensity.
Tosca also features some of Puccini's most iconic arias, Vici d'arte e Lucavant Estelle. They've become staples of the operatic repertoire.
Testaments to Puccini's ability to capture human emotion in music. Despair, longing, defiance.
Now, Madama Butterfly takes us to a very different world. Nagasaki, Japan, at the turn of the 20th century. Cultural clash, tragic love.
It's the story of Chiosho-san, a young geisha known as Butterfly, who falls deeply in love with Pinkerton, an American naval officer. She sacrifices everything for him, only to be abandoned, left with heartbreak and despair.
Puccini's score incorporates elements of Japanese music.
He was fascinated by Japanese culture, traditional melodies and scales woven into the fabric of the opera, a unique sonic landscape.
The initial reception of Madama Butterfly wasn't as smooth as La Bohème or Tosca.
The premiere at La Scala was a disaster, but Puccini believed in the opera, he made significant revisions, and it ultimately achieved success.
That unwavering belief in his vision is inspiring. Even masterpieces can face setbacks. Perseverance, artistic conviction. These three operas, La Bohème, Tosca, and Madama Butterfly, catapulted Puccini to international fame. He became one of the most sought-after opera composers of his time.
But even with all that success, his personal life was a source of both inspiration and turmoil.
Mirroring the dramatic narratives he brought to life on stage.
And it was during this period of intense creativity that he faced a life-altering event, a near-fatal car accident in 1903.
A broken leg, a long recovery.
This period of vulnerability must have had a profound effect on him.
Physically and emotionally, a near-fatal car accident. It makes you wonder how an experience like that shapes an artist's work.
It's an interesting thought, isn't it? During his recovery, Puccini kept working on Madama Butterfly. Some critics believe those themes of fragility and resilience in the opera, they might reflect his own feelings at the time.
Forced to confront his own mortality.
Perhaps, but the car accident wasn't the only turmoil in Puccini's life. His relationship with Elvira, always a passionate one, faced new challenges, his numerous affairs.
It seems his life really did mirror those operatic narratives. Full of drama.
Absolutely. The highs and lows, the love affairs, the betrayals, it all fueled his operas, gave them depth.
There's one incident that really stands out, the scandal with Doria Manfredi, a maid who worked for the Puccini family.
A dark chapter, for sure. Elvira, consumed by jealousy, accused Doria of having an affair with Puccini. Publicly, it led to Doria's suicide.
A tragic outcome.
The accusation was proven false, but the damage was done.
A reminder of the power of unfounded accusations. Did this event affect Puccini's work?
Some music critics see a connection. The emotional depth, the tragic fates of some female characters in his later operas, the themes of betrayal, sacrifice, despair, they resonate even more strongly in those works.
It's like that darkness found its way into his music, adding layers of complexity. Let's talk about his later works. Despite these personal upheavals, Puccini kept composing, always pushing the boundaries. His opera La Fanciulla del West, set in the American Wild West.
A significant departure for Puccini. It premiered in 1910 at the Metropolitan Opera in New York. Gold miners, outlaws, a strong woman named Minnie who runs a saloon.
Not your typical Puccini setting.
And the music reflects that. He incorporated American folk music into the score, evokes the landscape, the spirit of the West, shows his willingness to experiment.
After La Fanciulla del West came La Rondine. Some consider it a stylistic departure.
La Rondine is lighter, almost like an operetta. It's about Magda, a Parisian courtesan who falls for a young man from a simpler world. Waltzes, romantic duets, a bittersweet ending.
A different side of Puccini.
Then there's Il Trittico, 3 one-act operas, each exploring different aspects of the human experience.
3 operas in one.
Il Trittico is an experiment. Il Tabato, a dark tale on a barge on the Sed. Sor Angelica, a tragedy set in a convent. And Gianni Schicchi, a comedy inspired by Dante's Inferno.
You really wanted to showcase his range.
Exactly. And finally, we come to Turandot, his final, unfinished masterpiece.
Set in ancient China. Emperors, princesses, riddles with deadly consequences.
Turandot tells the story of Caliph, a prince who falls for the cold-hearted Princess Turandot. To win her, he must solve 3 riddles. If he fails, death. It's Puccini at his grandest, soaring melodies, dramatic tension, a touch of the Orient.
Sadly, Puccini didn't live to finish it.
He was diagnosed with throat cancer, passed away in 1924. The final act was left incomplete.
A tragic end.
Franco Alfano, another composer, finished the opera using Puccini's sketches.
So we can still experience Puccini's vision. Giacomo Puccini, a man driven by passion, both in his art and his life. His operas explore the full spectrum of human emotion, love, loss, joy, despair, everything.
He was a master of melody, a storyteller, a composer who continues to move us. His operas make us think about life, about ourselves, long after the final curtain.
And as we conclude this deep dive, we're left with the question, how did his struggles, his triumphs, his complex character shape his artistic vision? And how does knowing all this change the way we hear his operas today?